Well, welcome to the Botanical Medicine Study course with me, your host and instructor for the online course in all things botanical medicine. And my name is Stephanie Georgieff. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time with me. And we will be continuing our celebration of Women's History Month March by exploring different plants that are specifically healing for women. They're not limited, everybody can use these plants, but there is a long historical use of the plants we'll be exploring this month that are healing to women. So, for this week's Herb of the Week, we'll be examining a very popular herb, wild yam. This plant has been used for thousands of years in North America, and according to the Native American Ethnobotany database, the Meskwaki tribe used this herb for all sorts of different things. And the Meskwaki tribe is of the Algonquin origin from the eastern woodland culture areas, which was historically located in the St. Lawrence River Valley, Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Missouri, and Iowa. Now, wild yam is known by its botanical binomial of Dioscorea villosa. Now, common names for this herb are wild yam, Atlantic yam, common wild yam root, yellow yam, colic root, devil bones, four-leaf yam, and rheumatism root. So in all of those different things, except for devil's bone, you can see what it was used for traditionally, specifically the colic root and the rheumatism root. Now, Dioscorea villosa is in the family of Dioscoreae, which is a family of monocotyledonous flowering plants with about 715 known species in 9 genera. Now, the best known member of this family is yam or sweet potato, depending on what you want to call this delicious sweet root vegetable. But Dioscorea villosa is very different from the delicious sweet potato, even though they share a common name. So you really need to understand your botany nomenclature and so on if you want to use this medicinally. Now, Dioscorea villosa is a species of twining tuberous vine, which is native to Eastern North America. And it's got a very widespread range, which goes from Texas and Florida north to Minnesota, Ontario, and Massachusetts. So this is quite a big swath of territory. And it has also been used in Mexico. So North America is the home of this lovely plant. Now, the flower petal color is commonly green to brown or white, and the flower petals range from 0.5 millimeter to 2 millimeters, so they're very small, and the flowers tend to grow out of the point on the plant at which the branch or leaf attaches to the main stem. Um, and there's only one flower per flower thing. Sometimes you can get a whole bunches of flowers, and this is just one flower per flowering aspect. The fruit of the plant is a capsule, and you can see that in this vintage botanical drawing. It's really pretty red color. And then when it dries, it turns into this little pod thing. And it is actually quite pretty. The pods are very pretty. I would suggest using them in autumn uh, wreath decorations and flowering, flower arrangements for autumn. It's very pretty. But when the capsule, the pod splits, it releases seeds which begin the dispersal process. And as again, the pods look kind of like little lanterns. They're very pretty. Now, wild yam, Dioscorea, is quite the controversial plant, especially among different branches and paradigms of medicine. Now, Native Americans used Dioscorea more as a pain reliever, and they specifically used it to relieve the pain of childbirth. And this is amongst that wonderful Meskwaki tribe. Now, when I was in naturopathic school, we were taught this herb, Dioscorea, that it could balance out hormonal issues for women. And when I started my practice in the 1990s, that is when herbal medicine and specifically wild yam became all the rage. Now, there's much anecdotal information on wild yam, and everybody has their own experiences, and they are very important. We're not diminishing individual results, they're very important. But I will do my best to go over the main points. And I'm one of these women who was blessed by my mother and her mother, and we did not have a lot of hormonal issues. Our menstruations were rather easy, and our menopauses were also very easy. So I never had to seek help. So I have nothing but compassion for women that do experience these problems. So this is sort of a caveat saying I've never used this product personally, but I have helped people in my practice with this product. So the big controversy that sends pharmacists and natural herbal practitioners into screaming fits is that wild yam is not, I repeat, not natural progesterone. Okay. Plants obviously have sterols and hormones specifically for their own reproduction and their own lifespan, but thinking that a plant has human hormones is simply incorrect. Sometimes plant proteins and sterols can mimic certain hormones. And what happens in these cases is that they will attach themselves to certain hormonal receptors in humans. But what usually happens is the plant, through various mechanisms, enhances human physiology. Specifically, in the case of hormones, will enhance liver function. So the liver does its job more efficiently. Also, in certain cases, plants, sterols, can stimulate certain glands to work more efficiently. Now, there are drugs made from either synthetically creating hormones for humans or using hormones from animals. And the latter is why many people are searching for natural alternatives, because the things they do to animals to get them to produce hormones is not what we would call kind. Now, in the world of botanical medicine and traditional forms of natural medicine, the underlying principle of the therapy is creating the opportunity for the body to be more efficient. Okay. In orthodox medicine, the natural processes in the body are often overruled. And in some cases, this is very life-saving. Let's say your body is bleeding out. You can't wait around for the body to be more efficiently. You got to stop the blood flow. And that's when you use certain medications, specifically steroids, to stop that. In other cases, let's say the pancreas or the thyroid is not functioning, or these glands are absent for some reason, then yes, you must take a hormone replacement, such as insulin or thyroid hormones. So there's no argument there. And there are two different types of medical approaches, and each is very valid. And each is called for in different situations. So there's no judgment to, anybody using one or the other therapies. But one of the major reasons for so many problems with women's reproductive health is pollution. And the other is the altercation of our food systems, specifically in terms of pesticide use and factory farming, where animals are pumped with excess hormones to make them create more milk, be fatter, lay more eggs, and so on. And basically, we are eating these excess hormones in our industrially produced food. Okay. And hormones are these microscopic things in our bodies. The levels are very minor. And if you add a whole bunch of extra through industrially produced milk and cheese and meat and things like that, you are just going to experience all the problems we're experiencing. Now, because they're in everything we eat. Another issue is the ubiquitous use of hormones in women's health. And this is from birth control to hormone replacement therapy for women undergoing the transition into menopause. And if you eat or take too many hormones in your system, that means the body is going to excrete them. The liver is going to filter them out and get rid of them through the urine, which goes into the water supply. And public waterworks are not equipped to remove these hormones from the water system. So you're taking baths in hormones, you're drinking hormones, you're doing all sorts of things. And too much of anything is not a great idea. And in modern industrial societies, dependent on industrial food supplies, through excess pesticides, which mimic certain hormones, and industrial mass animal farming, this means we're all swimming in excess of what are called spelled XENO, xenoestrogens. And so, what is everybody upset about and targeting? Soy. Get rid of the soy. Okay, I'm being very snarky. Um, there's a lot of other issues than soy and this issue. So this is the reason for a lot of issues regarding fertility, early onset menstruation, problems with menstruation, and also problems with perimenopause, as well as menopause. So that's the big preamble to medicinal actions of wild yam. And it is as an antispasmodic, it's anti-inflammatory, which means it can help relieve pain. It's an anti-rheumatic, which means it helps with arthritic pains. It's a hepatic, and anything that is a hepatic, it helps the liver, okay? And cholagogue means that it works on the gallbladder. And the gallbladder and liver work together. They're little partners in helping the body with all sorts of metabolic issues and digestion of food, all sorts of things. And the liver is the largest organ in the body, and it's involved with all sorts of functions in the human body. And if it's working properly, then it takes out excess hormones in the system. It also will take out things like pollution and toxins and things that are harmful to the body. If the liver is overwhelmed with all sorts of things, then it just doesn't do its job very well, which affects other types of metabolism. All right. And then the last thing that wild yam does is it's a diaphoretic. Now, some modern studies suggest that wild yam can actually help improve blood sugar metabolism as well as cholesterol levels. And this is related to liver function. And antispasmodic and anti-inflammatory properties of wild yam can also help alleviate discomfort produced by the inflamed regions, which make diverticulosis so painful. So there's all kinds of wonderful things that this herb does. And you'll notice if you look at this list, it says nothing about menstrual issues or menopause or hormone replacement. Just notice that. Now, what is the big major constituent of wild yam that is causing so much jumping around in pharmaceutical circles and also helps relieve all sorts of issues? Is called diosgenin. Diosgenin. Okay, and this is diosgenin. That's a picture of diosgenin. And this is the major constituent of wild yam. Now, wild yam contains the chemical diosgenin, which can be synthesized in the laboratory into various steroids, such as estrogen and DHEA, better known as dihydroepiandrosterone. I'm sure I didn't say that properly, so let's stick with DHEA. Now, the root and the bulb of the plant are used as the source of diosgenin, okay, which you see in front of you, which is prepared as an extract, which is a liquid that contains concentrated diosgenin. Now, diosgenin in wild yam is often promoted as a, quote, natural alternative, unquote, to estrogen therapy. So you'll see it used for estrogen replacement therapy, vaginal dryness, and other things for older women. It's also used for premenstrual syndrome, menstrual cramps, and also for weak bones and osteoporosis. It also has been reported to increase energy and sexual drive in men and women. And it also has a side effect of breast enlargement. So some of these natural creams to help your breasts get bigger may include this herb. Now, wild yam does seem to have some estrogen-like activity, but it is not converted to estrogen in the body. You need a laboratory to do that. And you'll also see wild yam and diosgenin promoted as natural DHEA. And this is because in the laboratory, DHEA is made from diosgenin. But this chemical reaction is not believed to occur in the human body. So taking wild yam extract will not increase DHEA levels in the body. The body makes that naturally. Individuals who are interested in taking DHEA should avoid wild yam products labeled as natural DHEA. This is a hormone that your body naturally produces in the adrenal gland. DHEA helps produce other hormones, including testosterone and estrogen. And your natural DHEA, like all sorts of other things in the human body, peaks early in adulthood and then slowly falls down as you age. And this is why people want to take DHEA. They want to remain young. They want their hormones to be a certain level, et cetera, et cetera. And you can take synthetic DHEA in tablet, capsule, powder, topical cream, and gel. But it's synthetic. It's not wild yam magically turning into this hormone in your body. Now, people use DHEA as anti-aging therapy. It can also be used to treat depression and symptoms of menopause. Now, I have never used DHEA or prescribed it, mainly because I find using hormones in general in clinical practice to be a very big can of worms and can create unintended outcomes. In certain cases, hormones are needed, such as in diabetes and thyroid disorder. But this is the realm of endocrinology, and the physicians who are endocrinologists go to quite a bit of school and training to learn how to balance out the hormonal glands and system. Now, the best and I feel most important contribution herbal medicine has to the entire scenario of endocrinology is to help the body be more efficient in how it naturally produces its own hormones. And it's really the liver that is the function of that. Sometimes it's the pituitary, but mostly it's the liver. And it's the function of wild yam that helps people be more healthy and in balance. And therefore, their endocrine system is also more in balance. Modern life with industrial food systems, pollution, and exposure to so much general garbage in our air, water, our livers are simply overwhelmed and not able to filter out excess toxins. And it's also not able to help regulate our hormone levels, which is what it's supposed to do. Now, if the liver is nourished and helped along with herbs like wild yam, then hormone levels, especially those dependent on feedback mechanisms through blood levels, they can be more healthy. Now, the other chemicals that are abundant in wild yam are steroidal saponins. Uh, they're also, these saponins have all sorts of pharmacological uses in human beings. These contribute to antibacterial activity, anti-tumor, anti-inflammatory, hypoglycemic, and lipid lowering effects. And we see this in wild yam because it evens out blood sugar and it also helps with cholesterol. And again, what wild yam is doing is it's helping the liver uh, do its job. So wild yam is an important industrial raw material for the synthesis of other substances, but it's also um, really just really wonderful for the human body. And wild yam, the Diosgenin, used to be the main source of raw material in the production of birth control for women because of this. So this is an amazing plant, but if you want hormone stuff with wild yam, it really needs to be synthesized in a lab. Now, there are all sorts of ways to take wild yam, and the most popular way is through creams. And I suggest you work with a healthcare provider if you wish to take wild yam this way, because it's a very complicated method. You need to apply it during certain days of your menstrual cycle. So you're not doing it all the time, you're only doing it certain times. And I also would suggest getting a complete hormonal workup to see what your hormonal levels are and then go from there. Now, capsules and tinctures are also available. One of the reasons the cream is promoted is that it goes directly into the blood system, where if you take it by mouth, it tends to break it down. But I personally think the oral routes are fine, mainly because it's helping your liver be more healthy. There's also the bulk herb, but a simple note, wild yam root is one of the toughest substances known in the plant world, especially when it's dried. It will destroy any sort of food processor or coffee grinder you may possess. It's like gravel. And so you have to boil the heck out of wild yam to get the active constituents out of it. Now, wild yam is another plant I have no experience growing, and because of the difficulty in processing the root, my herb teacher in naturopathic school told me that she and her husband tried squishing the root between slabs of metal, which were run over by a car, but it only bent the metal and did nothing to the roots. But there are sources on how to grow this beautiful Native American plant. It's a creeper, so it'll take over and it needs something to climb up on. So, however you wish to incorporate this interesting and amazing plant with varied uses, I hope you come to appreciate what a gift wild yam is and has been for centuries. This is Stephanie Georgiev saying thanks so much for spending your valuable time with me. Make sure to check out the links in the program notes. And until next time, be well.